All right, so we have this comment here, Dr. Darren Schmidt and his lactic acidosis idea. One of the best YouTubers on health that exists. This is true. It's totally true. I have been following Dr. Darren Schmidt for a long time. I've been on a couple of his lives and been able to ask a question or to talk to him here and there about a couple of things. And he is a great guy. I'm going to talk about first all the things I really, really like about him, and I'm going to give you the two things of why, these two things that really are holding him back, in my opinion. So the lactic acidosis idea, he's pulled that out of books that are extremely old, and I don't know how old, maybe the 40s or 30s, I think he has said before, but basically it was an idea that lost a lot of steam, probably due to the medical system as it exists today, and I'm sure the Flexner report had something to do with it. If you're not familiar with the Flexner report, you can check that out in another video. But anyways, Dr. Darren Schmidt is awesome. I do fully appreciate his information on ketosis, and he says that everybody could benefit from ketosis even if they're only doing it 1 to 2 days per month. Now, at the same time, he also says, there's no one diet for everybody. And I totally agree with that because there's so many different diets out there. And I think the majority of the population in America who have been on the standard American diet could actually benefit from going on the ketogenic diet simply because most of those people's sugars are going to be so freaking high that they could go a long time without, adding excessive amounts of sugars to their diet. The added issues is insulin resistance, that goes along with high carbs diets, high sugar diets, but ketosis can help to correct that. And that's the big thing. It doesn't work for everybody. If somebody doesn't have really high sugars, then yes. If their sugars are extremely low, then yes, they need more sugar. I'm not a big fan of all these proponents out there who say, keto's bad, it's going to destroy your thyroid. Keto's bad, it's going to destroy your adrenals, when the actual facts are you need to have diets and things that are going to support and nourish every organ of your body. So if you're on a keto diet, you need to replenish your minerals. That's all there is to it. You need to have magnesium, potassium, and electrolytes. That's all there is to it. It would be a great idea if you worked in and incorporated other herbs for adrenal health, because life as we know it is going to wear on your adrenals. That's the bottom line. So if you incorporate holy basil, ashwagandha, there's numerous other herbs out there that are supportive for your adrenals. Those are just two of my very favorites probably right now. But ashwagandha is a nightshade, so not everybody knows this, but people have nightshade sensitivities. Ashwagandha is a nightshade. If you have rashes or if you're very sensitive to light or loud noises, it could be a symptom of that. But anyways, Dr. Darren Schmidt is awesome because also he doesn't take any crap. I remember recently there was some scientific Australian dude who put him on blast and was like, stay in your lane, and you have to refer to these things as this. This is the scientific term, whereas it doesn't matter. I agree with Dr. Darren Schmidt on this, and he was just like, look, you've got no authority over me. You can't tell me what to say, what I can say, what I can't say, and I don't have to listen to you. So it was kind of cool because he also brought up the fact about how lactic acidosis is a term that not everybody understands, and he was even at one health seminar. Dr. Darren Schmidt was at a health seminar where he talked about it, and nobody had any feedback because it's a lost art in some respects. Nobody understands it but him in some ways. I mean, the viewers of the channel, because they follow him and understand him, can know about lactic acidosis and understand it better than other people. And I think the easiest way to understand it from my interpretations of all the videos I've seen of his is that it's a situation of being severely acidic. And I think that's just the very basic, most simplistic way of putting it into terms. I love that he came out with this video where he found somebody talking about how protein actually doesn't matter for individuals who are on a ketogenic diet, that gluconeogenesis will pretty much not be performed on any large scale. Now, he did the study on himself, And he found that conclusive as well, that on the ketogenic diet, he could eat as much protein as he wanted, and nothing impacted his blood ketone levels unless it was a carbohydrate. So, sugars, right? So that was really awesome, and it was very encouraging to me because my kids, they're semi-ketogenic, and I've got 3 of them, actually 1 on the way. And they, when their blood sugars rise, they can be quite a bit to handle. And that was the biggest thing holding me back for the ketogenic diet in kids, was I was concerned that the low protein or the moderate protein on a ketogenic diet would not be beneficial for kids because they need proteins. But when I found that study, I was like, whoa, that's awesome. Then I don't have to worry about it. They can have as much protein as they want, and it's not going to be negative, basically, right? So, yeah. Other things, I love his debunking videos. There's this one Vegan Mike, M-I-C, play on words, Vegan Mike vegan video that he debunked, and it was great because you watch it and all the arguments that Vegan Mike made, he ends up going and pausing it and saying, that's sugar. The problem with that is sugar. And in that video, he had this analogy that I actually really like and I use pretty often when people ask questions about if you have just fat in a pan and it becomes a grease when you warm it up, and it'll be an insulator. It doesn't cause things to stick. So he said, in the same way, when you have a fat fluid diet, when you're eating enough fats and not carbs, then you're going to have the fat fluid flowing throughout your body. It's not going to be something that causes heart disease and clogs arteries. He said, however, of course, if you have a dish, a pan on the stove, and you put sugar in it, or anything like that, or syrup, and you try and cook with that, then everything's going to stick. And that just seems so plain as day, makes common sense, and is a great argument in my opinion. So he also is a fan of the carnivore diet, which I think is a great diet because as it's been clearly laid out, I think in a lot of different places, that meat restores meat. Like if you want to have healthy heart tissue, you need to eat meat, in my opinion. If you want to have healthy muscle, you need to eat muscle. And, maybe you don't have to eat muscle, but maybe it'd be better to include internal organs like the liver, like the adrenals, like even eat brains. And me personally, I don't eat enough organ meat, but I would really like to eat more organ meats. It's just, I haven't really found a good local source for that, which there's websites for that, and I've seen people do reviews of these websites. And I've wanted to try out ButcherBox for a while, but I haven't, because they'll ship you, a 4-pound liver, which that can be hard to get at my local grocer, but I could also probably just find someplace locally that I could get those things. And the benefits for eating organs is huge. Weston A. Price Foundation, which Darren Schmidt is also a fan of, he references also their dietary habits, their dietary guidelines of nourishing traditions for babies, nourishing traditions for, us. It's really interesting because if you eat liver, then you can get natural sources of vitamin A in good amounts. If you eat adrenals, then you can naturally get beneficial amounts of vitamin C naturally. All these things. There's tons of benefits. So he also had a episode that he called Cars and Carnivory, and I didn't really like the name, but it doesn't matter. It was a pretty good video, and he could have turned it into a whole series, but he's a type of creator where I'd say he's a little bit more like me in some respects, that he just wants to sit down and list off a number of things and talk about them individually, and that Cars and Carnivory was actually a very good video, and I enjoyed it. But he could have definitely broke it down into each car, because it was a play on cars and coffee. Which, first thing I'll get to that I don't like about Darren Schmidt. He doesn't like coffee. Big shocker, right? So overall, that's not a huge deal. I mean, I get it. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people talk a lot of smack about it being bad for you, but I love coffee, and I don't think I'll ever give it up. And I have directly talked to him about coffee enemas. I've asked him if he thinks coffee enemas are good or beneficial, and he says he's not really into coffee, so he wouldn't really go that route. And there's other things that he would do instead. So I really love, moving on, I really love his very clear mission statement that his mission is to bankrupt pharma companies. And, you know, he's been blatant about that since a lot of videos I've seen for a very long time, and he's very humble about it too, and he makes videos where he'll bring up his mission, and he says, to this day I've not bankrupted any pharmaceutical companies, but I'm still working at it. And I'm sure he's taken away money from those pharmaceutical companies just by showing people that there is natural means, natural herbs and things out there that are possible to help correct health, because pharmaceutical companies don't correct health, right? They prescribe different pharmaceuticals that mostly just cover up symptoms, and that's all there is to it. Speaking of the herbs, he has given out great information on mold detox because he himself has gone through that. And one of the biggest pickups that I've learned from his channel is how beneficial Spanish black radish is. That's great. I've never had anybody ever talk about Spanish black radish before seeing it on Dr. Darren's channel. There's other things that are great for mold. I know black walnut is one of those, and he has talked about how saunas, dry saunas, far infrared saunas are actually very beneficial, and he had documented his own experience with doing that. But he also did the carnivore, and he showed that his levels were reduced greatly by just doing the carnivore diet as well. I really love his other debunking videos where he talks about observational data as being some of the worst ways to establish science. He talks about questionnaires is not science because there's so many confounding variables that cannot be accounted for. It's not cut and dry, especially the ones where they say processed meats are the absolute worst, that they're the same as a carcinogen, as bad as smoking cigarettes. I think bacon was the one that, you know, everybody knows about, where I think it was the World Health Organization that made those claims, and he was like, it's ridiculous because it's just a questionnaire, and you can't tell if these people filling out the questionnaire are even being honest, and you can't tell the other variables in their diet that are not indicated through the questionnaire. So it's junk science is what he has said, I believe, basically would be a good summary. He has really laid out clear understandings for understanding science and what studies can be beneficial and which ones can't. So actually going back to some of the debunking videos he's done great debunking videos for when people come forward talking about veganism and that being the most healthy diet that exists. And there's a lot of people out there that concur with him on this, because there's individuals within the vegan community who it seems like 15 years is like a maximum. Most people at 15 years will realize that they're deteriorating their health on a vegan diet, and it's not sustainable and it's not a good practice. Like Dr. Cassar, who he's got tons of information that I've learned a lot from him as well, but he used to be a huge proponent for the vegan diet. There's the vegan mama, I believe. And then there's all these YouTubers who get busted eating fish for lunch when they're supposed to be a vegan because it's not sustainable. And then the vegan company or the vegan community goes into an uproar because they're like, no, you were doing it wrong, blah, blah, blah. I've been vegan for X amount of years. In my experience, the people who are vegan for a large amount of time, if it's over 15 years, they have severe health issues in one way or another, or you can just look at their face and see that they do not look healthy. So in my opinion, I wouldn't want to follow those people. I've done a vegan vegetarian diet for 1 year. I've tried those. For me, I felt horrible the entire time. I don't even know that I've ever seen Dr. Darren Schmidt talk about vegan keto videos or not. But still, the bottom line is raw plants are very harsh on your digestive system, and eating them raw for 15 years or more is most likely going to lead to some severe digestive complications, in my opinion. And that's just what I've observed. Now, going back to even what Dr. Darren Schmidt has said about observational data, it's not the best. It's not very scientific, but this is just my experience. So even he said it, no one diet fits all. I really like the parts of his videos that he makes like he had a Bronco and he sank it into his lake over last winter, and that was actually pretty funny because he was having fun driving on the ice, which in Michigan, I used to have tons of fun walking on the ice, and I'm surprised some days that I survived because we would intentionally break the ice in the springtime, and I never really fell in. I mean, nothing too serious. But anyways, that brings up, the second negative thing for Dr. Darren Schmidt. He is from Ohio. If you're from Michigan, maybe you know this, maybe you've heard, but notoriously a lot of people in Ohio clog up the roads in Michigan and don't know how to drive. And for some reason, that's observational data that seems very true to me as well. It's funny that anybody who I know in Michigan complains about Ohio people just because, yes, that's probably the biggest feud over the Battle of Toledo. The War of Toledo, if you will, where Toledo was given to Ohio and it should have been a port for Michigan. But instead, Michigan was awarded the UP, and Michiganders were originally called Wolverines as a derogatory term, and we wore it as a badge, and the feud goes on to this day, Wolverines versus Buckeyes, and it's pretty sad to see in college football that the Buckeyes have been doing so well in recent years compared to U of M. But anyways, putting all that aside, Dr. Darren Schmidt is actually a really good channel. He actually told me about parasites and how Mimosa pudica is one of the best things to get rid of parasites, and he's had tons of people extract them. His information is probably some of the best that has helped me out when it comes to parasite cleansing. And I also love that he has humble farming roots. He just made a video recently. His family farm was sold after 98 years. So that video was really good. I liked it. He talks about how we have to get back to real food and sustainable farming practices. So overall, just a little recap here. The two worst things about Dr. Darren Schmidt, if you missed him, is he's from Ohio and he doesn't like coffee. That being said, if we ignore those two things, he's got a great YouTube health channel. Of all the YouTube health channels out there, I agree with him the most. I don't think there's very many things that he's ever said on his channel that I can straight up say, oh, I totally disagree with that. Anyways, guys, stay healthy.